Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm Vila Bianca.
This is Skeptic Generation.
That was very loud.
Yeah. What was that? How did that happen?
I don't know.
Normally the cheer's really quiet.
Yeah.
Okay, let us know if that blasted out your ears or if it was just us.
We do apologize.
Whoa, my goodness. Okay, hi V.
Hi.
Other than that weirdness.
That was painful. Couple seconds.
Hopefully it was just us. How you doing?
Doing good.
Good.
Lots of things happening in the next week.
Definitely. And lots of things have happened this last week. Let's see. So we wound up getting more computer parts, and people were bugging, saying, hey, you're not forgetting your graphics card, right? Like you're getting the pokes. We got it. If you want to see it, you're going to get the opportunity.
Yeah.
This upcoming Saturday, I'm going to live stream building the production PC that we've been raising money for, and I'm really, really excited about it. It's going to be on our channel for about a week, you think? Mm-hmm. For a week, and then after that, it'll be made available for patrons only. So we'll be locking that off. But set your calendars and make sure you come join us. I'm going to be having a special guest who's going to be helping me put it together. A friend who's
Yeah, there will be a special guest. Not shocking. I guess,
but a good friend who's excited to help.
A nice, friendly situation. And we don't have an exact time for that yet, but I will be putting links out all over social media, on Patreon, on the community tab, so you will have plenty of notice. That should be really exciting.
It definitely will be, but that's not the only exciting thing happening in the next week.
Right, we are having our senior patron hangout on the 19th. The information there is on Patreon, so make sure to go check that out if you are a patron or if you would like to become one to join us for this. It's a private, essentially Discord chat channel. Mm-hmm. It's not recorded. You don't have to worry about being on camera. It's just super chill.
Yeah, hang out with us.
Yeah.
And then we're also going to be celebrating our 1 year anniversary. Can you believe that?
Of the show.
Of the show.
Not
we've been together for longer than that.
Yeah.
No, the show, Skeptic Generation.
Oh no, I forgot.
Skeptic Generation is going to be hitting its 1 year anniversary. We're super, super excited about it. We can't believe it's been a year, but it has been a blast. And so we're going to be doing something next week. We're not telling you about it. We want you to join us, though, to see it. It is not going to be your regular fare, but it will be live. And we hope to see you there.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And then on that stream as well, we are hoping to announce when we're going to be in Portland, so that everybody has a couple of weeks to prep for that. I'm also going to be not on the show while I am in Portland because we have a very strict you must be in the studio in order to be on the show policy.
Yeah.
So we're probably going to have a combination of hopefully a couple of guests, and then Eric might take a couple solo.
Yeah. So fingers crossed. Be patient with me for that. I'm excited. We can do it together, but we're going to miss you. I'm going to miss you.
I'll still be on in the background. I'll be making sure all the metadata gets where it needs to go. So
definitely.
I'll be there in spirit.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we want to announce or talk about?
Just, call the show.
Yeah. V and I made a brisket yesterday.
That too.
14 hours. It
14 hours.
It was long. We ended up eating
like
really late.
It was a 3-pound brisket. It was like 14 hours, you guys.
I did something wrong, I'm sure, but it was yummy.
I think it just hit that stall.
Yeah. That bark, it was fantastic.
It was pretty good. But yeah, if you would like to give us a call, you can do that at the number 585-526-8774. I always forget the middle one. Or you can call us using your phone, your computer, by clicking on the link that is in the description or typing it in. That's tiny.cc/callSG, capital S, capital G. Mm-hmm. We have just a couple of callers right now, so if you were to call in, you would get more time to talk to us.
And we always get really great callers toward the end, and then we don't have enough time for them. So if you're one of those people, call in so we can actually give you the time that the topics deserve. All right, then if that is everything, I think we should dive into our first call.
I think that's a good idea.
I haven't really gotten to take a look. Why don't we start by talking to Erika in Texas?
Perfect. Sounds good.
It says Erika is a newbie skeptic, is looking for book recommendations, and wants to talk about a family member who's really into Jordan Peterson and doesn't know how to really, or is asking for advice and engaging in those discussions.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, we're here for you, Erika.
Erika, you're live with Eric and V.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for calling in. So, newbie skeptic, huh?
Yeah, I've been coming out of a fundamentalist background over the last couple of years and trying to grow in what I'm reading and learning. And found you guys not too long ago, and I've really enjoyed the discussions you guys have. And
Aw.
so I'm just trying to learn some more.
Awesome. When did you find us? Just curious.
Oh gosh, you guys only had a couple of episodes in season 1.
Wow.
Of this
So you've
particular
been
show.
you've been watching for a while. That's awesome.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for watching, and we're definitely hoping that we can help. So, book recommendations, and you want to talk about a family member. What do you want to do first?
So I guess we could start with just the fact that, so the family members that I have, I've got a sister who's out of our fundamentalist upbringing, but 2 brothers that are still kind of doubling down, probably because it benefits them a little bit more. And one of them is a math teacher, and because he's into math, he thinks he's a philosopher and that he's really logical and can argue his way into like why evolution isn't real.
Oh,
So,
my goodness.
he has those kind of conversations with me every now and again, and I tend to just kind of let him talk. And because he's got one of those personalities that he doesn't really respect anyone, so it's hard to counterbalance when they're not really listening. And I recently learned he started watching Jordan Peterson, and I'm not super familiar with Jordan Peterson, but enough to know that's not awesome.
Yeah.
And just trying to learn better argument skills and better ways to logic with somebody who thinks they're logical.
Well, so the first thing is to set healthy expectations. If somebody tends to railroad others, if they're like that, actually, this is a perfect time to bring this up because I've had a few emails recently, over the last about week or two, that are similar. People who are asking for this kind of advice, and what I've got to tell you is, you're probably not going to change them, at least not easily, not anytime soon. And, there are people who will say, oh, my loved one or my significant other is going down this road, how do I show them that they're wrong? The best thing that you can do, I think, is set yourself up with expectations for the future when it comes to them. So if you want to have a discussion, have the discussion the way you want to have the discussion. If they want to railroad you, go, you know what? It sounds like you want to have a discussion that, it sounds like you want to talk at me. I'm not up for that. Feel free to come and give me a shout when you want to not do that, but setting boundaries and going, here's what I'm willing to do. Here's what I'm able to do. I care about you and I'm here. But if people get the impression that you're trying to change them, it can be tough. I think I've seen a lot more success come around from people honestly being open about, their questioning and what their journey is. Because it doesn't feel like a direct attack, but it feels like something that you can explore together. And so phrasing it that way, hey, I don't know about that. Or, oh, it sounds like you've got a really strong idea of what evolution is. If you want to talk about it, let's research it together. All of a sudden, it's no longer contentious, and you could look into it together, and now they're not fighting against you. They're trying to explain to you why the textbook is saying that he's not right. Just that shift makes it so that you're not butting heads, but that you're engaged in this process together. And then you get the opportunity to actually demonstrate what good research looks like. And when you get those opportunities, you go, oh, I didn't know that. They learn, oh, I can say I didn't know. That's okay to do. Or, oh, I was wrong about this. Oh, I can actually change my opinion. That's not bad. Just all of those things, demonstrating that is really, really useful. And I've just given you buckshot a whole bunch of stuff. V, what do you got?
Well, I'm curious what Erika thinks about your feedback first.
Oh, right.
Well, I think that's I think definitely asking questions opens up discussion way more than any kind of accusation or anything like that. And that's why I've been hopeful that I can have more discussions, because he does tend to broach the subjects with like, oh, I've been learning about this, or I've been thinking about this. So doing the same thing back might be the better way to go forward.
Yeah, I know that it can really suck. Like, I wish that there was a magic bullet. I wish there was a way that we could just reach into somebody's head and be like, can't you see that you're in this pattern? It's just, to my knowledge, there's not a good way like that. It just, I don't know. What do you think, V? I'm feeling rather nihilistic today.
Yeah, I think that
Or fatalistic.
that seemed very hopeful to me. Like, here is a way to not damage a relationship and hopefully bring someone out of a thing. But Erika, the other side of that, well, it ties in. I would, if he's coming to you with ideas or with new things that he's learned, instead of jumping, this is something I've had to learn, instead of jumping into, well, that's wrong because, or, well, I don't agree with that because, what I've done is like, oh, what convinced you of that? And then they then move into that area. Oh, what convinced you of that? Or why do you think that's true? So it really is this process of excavation, even if you know where it's going to go. And a lot of the time we do, right? We know that it's ultimately going to end up in the same place.
I believe what I believe. I have faith. I just have to accept it.
Yeah. It's going to come to that point. But the really important piece here is getting them to say that actually to you, not only for yourself, but also for them. I had conversations with a family member about trans issues and, can someone be trans and should we be, offering healthcare to trans children and all of these things. And they were very adamantly against it. And I was like, oh, why? And I kept bringing that up. Oh, well, there's this research. Oh, actually, that research isn't that great. Do you have anything else? Oh, well, I just don't think it's scientific. Okay, if it was scientific, if you found out somehow that it was scientific and that, it was 100% real and you were convinced of that, would you support it? No. Oh, why? Because I don't think God likes it. Right? And then we got to that point, and that's where I ended the conversation. And I was just like, okay, thank you for being honest about that. We're done. Because you cannot get away with throwing scientific facts at me or a paper or, well, this smart person said this thing. If those are not actually your reasons for believing, let's at least be honest about why these things appeal to you and why you have these beliefs. So just getting them to that point, even if it's not going to change their mind, because a lot of the time it won't, it will at least clear away a bunch of stuff so that the next time they come to you with a thing, you can reference that and be like, okay, is this something where you're actually into the science of this? Or is this something where you're using this
Somebody gave you data.
Right, someone gave you data that you feel backs something else up for other reasons. So for me, that's always been one of the more helpful ways of having those conversations.
Yeah, and that leads pretty clearly into, okay, so what do I need to start learning about where I can say, well, that's not a good reason for bringing in something, or that convinced you that something's true, but is it? And like, how are we thinking about these things? And
there are so
how do I know a study's not good?
Well, there are a couple pieces. The first, I think, is follow your passions. If you hear an argument and you want to know more about it, you want to learn about it, that's the time to take that path. If you try and hammer in a whole bunch of information that you don't feel is useful or relevant, it's going to sour the experience of diving into philosophy. And that can be rough. You have your own time frame, you have your own, so feel free to take advantage of that. There are a whole lot of books that I read that over time I've come to either disagree with the author or just not like the author. I don't know, getting involved in the atheist space as well, it turns out that some people aren't heroes. But I will tell you that It's just a fact. When I read The God Delusion, it had me look at things from an angle that I hadn't looked at things from before. And I came to different answers on a lot of things eventually, but looking at things that I had kind of taken for granted about my faith and about different religious responses to things was a great jumping off point. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. I really don't want to give a whole bunch of other. What do you think, V?
Well, I love that you said follow your passions, because that is accurate. Erika, nobody is expecting you to be an expert on everything or be able to suss out why a thing is wrong. Just, oh, Erika has read a book on everything and understands the nuance of every topic, right? That's unrealistic for anybody to expect.
Yeah.
So find a couple areas that really interest you. They could be about specific topics, or they could be about certain kinds of philosophy or certain kinds of epistemology. One thing that I would definitely recommend if you're looking for books is, I believe it's called An Introduction to Introduction to Informal Logic. Don't worry about formal logic or formal philosophical argumentation right now. Like, you don't need to worry too much about the mathematics of it, because frankly, if your brother's a mathematician, then he's probably going to use that to beat you around with.
I disagree.
But unless you're willing to dive right in, it is a huge kind of pool to play in, and just dipping a toe in usually isn't enough. Informal logic, informal argumentation, the kinds of things we do on this show. Oh, that is a fallacy. Oh, this is a form of reasoning that is flawed because of this other reason. That is actually a lot more accessible to the average person who isn't interested in getting a degree in the thing, and can be just as useful, if not more useful, because people are not going to be convinced by X equals Y.
No. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, they're going to be convinced by, oh, if somebody said that about this thing, would you be convinced? Why not? Okay, well, let's move on from there.
Yeah.
So An Introduction to Informal Logic, let me write that down so that I can actually drop that link into the description for today.
In the meantime, I'll actually give a little bit more information.
Thank you. Yeah.
And just to kind of shore up a little bit where I can, when we talk about formal and informal logic, formal logic is just the equations, it's the structure. And you can point at something being structurally, it'll work, or it could possibly, something could not be the case just because the structure is wrong. And so that's formal logic. And
it's only concerned about validity.
Right. It's not about whether or not it's sound. It's not about whether or not it holds up to reality, but just the structure. And that can be useful in some cases, but the vast majority of times you're talking to people, especially when it's about religion and theology, it's informal. It's informal fallacies, and you are going to get way better mileage out of that.
Yeah, and it's just more fun, in my opinion. But the last thing that I'll leave you with, Erika, here is I work in publishing. I collect books. I love books. Books are amazing. However, there is a wealth of information available to you, not in book form, that actually may be more useful in this case, especially if he's talking about things like evolution and creationism and things like that. Some of the most effective ways of counteracting that is to learn about what the other side is saying and why it is wrong. Not the theory of it, right? But just, oh, here are the talking points. Because believe me, there aren't many. They don't have a lot of talking points. So if you can go to channels like Xeno, or like Apologia, or what are some others? Gutsick Gibbon. There are so many skeptical content creators whose entire platform is used in that way. Here is one of the 5 or 6 talking points that creationists use. Here is exactly why that one point is wrong. And so if your brother is coming to you with these theories, with these things that he's convinced about, you can very easily address those individual issues and leave the larger picture alone for now, right? You don't need to disprove creationism, but if he's coming saying like, well, look at the fish fossils on the mountain, like you can be like, well, actually that is actually explained by this. So what else have you got?
Yeah.
So just books are amazing. I love books. Books are not the only way to get that information or the most valid way, right? We put a premium on like, oh, look how many books this person has read. But
Anybody can get published, though. Bill Schneebelen, the guy who says he was an ex-vampire, has got like 7 books.
Yeah.
So it definitely takes a little bit of research. And really quickly, I know we have, holy crap, we've got like 10 callers.
Oh my goodness.
But I do want to give a moment to talk about the Jordan Peterson stuff. Really quickly. What I would watch out for, and there's a whole bunch of social, political things that are disagreed, that I disagree with them on, but it sounds like you're having the philosophy conversation. Here's the problem that I see kind of consistently, and that is people think that something pretty or something, poetic being true in some way also makes it true in reality in a tangible way. And that kind of blending, I would think of it as a category error, right? Miscategorizing something. So finding a deep truth about, some subject does not mean that you're coming to learn about the world around you, the physical, tangible world. It just means that you have a deeper, clearer understanding of that philosophy. And so when people get really muddy and mucky around the word truth, that's when we have issues. And so as you talk to your brother, I think, right? About it, if he starts getting, really weird about the word truth, then I think the best thing to do is, hey, let's define that. Let's define truth. And even if it's, a definition that you come up with together, as long as you're consistently using that definition, you're going to be able to get a lot further along. Because it's in the flexibility of those words that people let a whole lot of weird ideas fly by.
Excellent. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for calling in. I know we kind of gave you a whole bunch of info. Hope that helped.
Yeah, and watch this back.
Well, yeah, thank you.
Make sure you check out the link in the description. It'll be up a couple hours after the live stream is over. Thanks, Erika.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Bye.
Okay, we have so many people.
We do have a lot of folks.
So what do you think of Joe?
I'm curious about this.
Okay, Joe in Kansas, it says, what are the hosts, is a religious person, a theist, and says, what are the hosts' thoughts on groups of skeptics that focus on unimportant or smaller things like astrology? Joe, you're live with Eric and V.
Hi, Eric. Hi, V.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay, so first off, what's your take on this? Like, it says that you're a theist, so, like, are you wondering where our views differ from yours? Or give us a little more info.
I'm just trying to get like general thoughts, because maybe I've just had bad luck and, I've just encountered the wrong people online or something. I don't know. But yeah, the thing about the example I give is astrology. There are other examples, but that's the one that always comes to mind. And the thought is, like, I can't tell you the number of times, I've been talking with someone, in the secular community, and the topic of astrology gets brought up, and it becomes, to hear this other person who I'm talking to talk about it, it sounds like it's ruining the world the same way that, fundamentalist Christians are ruining the world, going back to something that's just short of theocracy.
Is that your view? Just so that we can.
No.
Okay. What's your take?
It's my thing is, just to clarify, the levels of astrology, and people who, charge, thousands of dollars to, read a palm, or, the bizarre cases of, people who claim to be psychics and, look for, missing children and that kind of stuff. That's horrible.
Yeah.
So I have
taking
no
advantage of
problem
people.
saying that kind of stuff is, something just short of criminal.
Well, I mean, sometimes it is criminal, but it is definitely predatory.
Right. It's, yeah. But regarding just astrology generally, I mean, I've talked with some people who think that, just the fact that there's horoscopes in most newspapers is this horrible thing that needs to be put an end to. And that's to me, that is just such small potatoes that it makes the secular community seem silly to me.
You know what? I totally get it. And I feel like we in the secular community are having a tough time describing that, because I've talked about this with other people, and most of the people I've spoken to in the secular community have agreed with me on this. And the idea is that first thing we need to do is we need to fix, real and present dangers, the predators out there, right? That's stuff we need to address. With that said, though, when we talk about applying skepticism, we want to hold ourselves accountable and hold the people that we care about accountable to, having good reasons for believing the things that you believe. And so, like, on this show, I'm actually way more of a butthead about it than I am in real life, right? If somebody says they're into,
Sure.
like we call it woo, right? Crystal healing and all that crap.
Right.
If somebody's into woo,
Yeah.
at a party, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, I'm going to just talk at this person for the next 5 hours. No, I'm not a jerk. I lost myself for a second.
Oh, they weren't flipped.
They are for EQ.
Okay.
Got it. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not going to be a jerk about it, but at the same time, on this show, if somebody is wanting to talk about having a critical view of the world, then I think it's a good thing for us on this platform to be critical and to encourage people to be critical about, what they take for granted about the world around them. And so it's kind of it's a platform thing. On this platform, I think it's useful to be a butthead. But in real life, geez, I don't know. Like, if somebody's making important life decisions based on their star charts, I think you should get involved if you care about that person and don't want them to make ill-informed decisions.
Right, but
Yeah, but
just to say, I don't think. I'm pretty sure you guys would agree that I feel like most people who read a horoscope or, look at, or have had, their palm read at one point or another in their lives, don't make enormous life decisions based on those two things.
You'd be surprised, unfortunately. But let's go with it. I don't know. Like, what do you think, V? I'm kind of at a loss. I don't know where to go from here.
I think it's a miscommunication problem a lot of the time, and I think to an extent I fully agree with Joe here, where if you get on this topic and you're like, this is the thing that is going to ruin the world, that's like, is it though? Like, I know you've got, like, everyone has their pet things that they're like super into. If this is yours and you know a lot more than like other people do about it, and you're seeing some ties to things that are like really concerning, absolutely bring those up and like explain that. But just saying like astrology will ruin us all is like, okay, well, I mean, cool, I guess. But here's the problem. Oh.
I dropped my phone. This is going to be fun to edit.
Here's the problem here. So I agree that the same underlying problem is dangerous. The same underlying problem of thinking, like that magical thinking element, and the normalization of assuming that things outside of this physical world are actively influencing and controlling us and dictating our futures and allowing our decision-making process to be influenced by things that are not provable is a problem in general. Astrology is a benign way that manifests most of the time. Reading your horoscope in the newspaper.
But it's still magical thinking.
But the fact that we have a culture where magical thinking is printed in the newspaper alongside the actual news is an issue. That said, if it's printed right next to the stock market exchange and like what's going on there, that's just kind of another form of magical thinking about things that don't actually exist, because that money is not real. So like, the more you get into this, the more interesting it gets, because then we really have to say, okay, what is harmful about some magical thinking and helpful about other forms of it? Is it just how ingrained it is? Is it how practical it looks? Is it how fluffy the language is? Like, how are we measuring that? So I think that when people tell you things like tarot reading or astrology or woo of some kind is the most dangerous thing, they're telling you a lot about themselves. They're telling you a lot about what they think is important, which is helpful to communication. Sure. But I think what they're trying to get at a lot of the time is that underlying concern around magical thinking and how that is tied to a lot of the big problems that we have today. That's what I would interpret that to.
You're absolutely right. I know that a lot of people haven't been impacted heavily by magical thinking, and I've lost a loved one due to bad medical decisions they made because of their magical thinking. And because of that, I'm a whole lot more, incensed when I hear people that are being, that are going down that route. But you're right. It does tie back to magical thinking. Yeah.
Does that make sense, Joe?
Yes, I guess I hadn't really thought of it in that context, because again, when someone, when you're talking about when I've had conversations with people about this subject, if astrology gets brought up, my thought goes to the kind of the predatory types of it, like I mentioned, psychics who claim, to help people look for, children who have been missing for 20 years or whatever,
right?
And and charge the families, tens of thousands of dollars to do it. That's predatory and horrible and should be illegal. But I'll have a conversation and that gets brought up, and I'll say, oh yeah, learning about whatever, and then they'll pivot it to, and horoscopes in the newspapers, which is to me just like infinitesimally tiny next to the predatory side of things.
But it does share that magical thinking.
Right. If your focus is harm reduction, then you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
If your focus is how is this harming actual people in the moment, I think you're spot on. And I personally think that is more useful most of the time when we're talking about what happens in the day-to-day. Who is being harmed? How can I help? But if we're going from a philosophical standpoint and pulling back and looking at the big picture, we see that the line between somebody who doesn't, get out of bed on Tuesday,
it makes a lot more sense,
goes directly to someone pays thousands of dollars and gets taken advantage of. So.
Yeah. And by the way, Joe, this is an argument that V and I have off camera regularly. V is the pragmatist and I'm kind of the idealist. I'm using those words colloquially. There's a whole thing, but just applicability versus ought we, to do these things. As long as you're making sure that you're on the same page, V, I think you nailed that.
Yeah. Does that kind of clear things up? I mean, I don't want to speak for these people that you've been talking to. It could very well be that they are thinking that horoscopes are the worst thing in the world, in which case, let me live in that world. That's an amazing world to live in. But if they are following the line of logic that I've seen play out often in this skeptical community, it's the magical thinking and the normalization of it that opens people up to being more likely to be taken advantage of in the future.
Yeah, that's where
I'll admit I hadn't thought of it quite in that context.
Yeah, well, it was a really good question.
Definitely. I'm sorry, my head is now swimming with people taking their babies to chiropractors and MLM
Or their cats.
essential oils.
Without any understanding. Like,
yeah, or sticking pins in their cats. Yeah, it's just.
Gosh.
Yeah.
But Joe, I would love to. We have so many callers. I wish we had the time, but as a religious person, I would love to get your thoughts.
Theist and religious are different things.
That's true. As a theist, do you see places where magical thinking can cause trouble on the day-to-day?
No, I've called in before. I'm the deist who you mark as basically an atheist.
Oh, right. Got it. Okay, then never mind.
Yeah. So big fat no.
No. Okay. Fair enough. I just didn't want to leave that stone unturned. Joe,
Sure.
I apologize for not recognizing you as that caller.
No, that's all right.
I feel like anyway. Joe,
Joe's
Called in a
cool.
while.
yeah, Joe, you are cool. Thank you for calling. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
I feel like I had just verbal diarrhea, and like I'm talking at him and you just like nailed it. That was really good.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
This is something that I have to think about more than most, I feel like, because of the whole atheist witch thing, and because I read tarot, and because I play in that space a little bit more. I feel like if I'm going to allow myself that, and of course like, speak about it publicly, I need to be aware of what the reasoning is to combat that and be
diving
able to
into the
address
core
that.
of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just me being responsible.
Magical thinking. Love it. Very poignant. Okay, who are we talking to next?
Let's see. I think that Lucas has been on the line for a while. He's calling in from Brazil.
Ooh, okay, sure. And I think it might have been a while since we've talked to Lucas. Lucas wants to discuss if it's reasonable to believe in a God based on that God's perceived attributes. Lucas, you're live with Eric and V.
Hi. Hi, Eric. Hi, V.
Hello.
Okay, so is it reasonable to believe in a God based on that God's perceived attributes? Give us a little bit more info.
Yeah, give us an example.
Yeah, sure. What I'm thinking is if there's such a creature that exists in the universe that's so advanced that it can fool our senses and it can fool us in every perceivable way, how can we tell whether that's a god or if that's just some creature, or if that's just someone claiming to be a god, someone that can do all the things that he claims he can do, but he he's just what he is.
That makes me think of that episode of Next Generation.
Yeah, with
the Picard. When
I was thinking about the one with when the devil character comes into the
you're right.
village
Yeah,
and,
and there's a court case.
Yeah.
My thought was the people of the planet. One person went up to the ship and was like, "Oh, Picard is a god," and so yeah, I think that what's important here is we recognize that language is what we make it, and so if we have a definition of God, those definitions can shift and change, and so you can't point at that definition and say it's set in stone. This is what it matches. It's flexible and weird that way. That said, I think that we should approach it very, very carefully. If we came across an alien that could materialize things, I would not assume that it could go back in time. You know, if we were to encounter someone who said that they were a god, the only things that I would believe would be the things that thing demonstrated. And even then, I wouldn't necessarily believe how they did it, but just that, it happened. So I don't know. What do you think, B?
Well, I mean, I think, yeah, sure. I mean, here's where I might differ. If you can show me a creature that does the things that I am convinced no one can do, I will probably believe what that creature does, right? Like, if they have the ability to mind control me into experiencing something myself and being convinced of it, then yeah, I'm going to believe that that happened. And that's where personal experience comes in. The next step, though, is after that experience, going back to it and looking at it from a host of perspectives, getting other people's takes on things, because it's very possible that this is like a solipsistic concept. If something convinced all of us that it was a god, but it wasn't, would we be convinced? Absolutely. Like that would happen. And if that does happen, cool, this show becomes a lot different in future seasons. But yeah, I think that this is primarily a linguistic thing. I think a god creates universes, exists before space and time, and has a personal relationship with me and makes me feel like the most special person in the world. If I met a being that could do those three things or convinced me that they could, I'd be like, yeah, okay, you're a god. What will I worship you? Will I join your religion? Maybe. Don't know. But okay, cool. You meet that criteria. There is now a god in the world. So
and a lot of people would have other criteria that would need to be met. So it just totally depends.
Exactly.
I do gotta. Never mind. I won't. I'm just being a bud.
Lucas, what are your thoughts there?
So what a question that came up right now, that came to me right now is, so if it's more of a linguistic thing, does that mean that God is not necessarily a supernatural or something outside of space and time? Or
Absolutely.
It can be something completely natural and dependent on everything that's dependent on science and.
Well, so I'll give you an example. We were talking about woo in the last call, but I've had people say, well, God is just the universe, man. It's just what I call this grand collection that we see and understand, and it's everything, and it's in us, and we are God. Like, none of those, that's very poetic, but you don't need any kind of magic for that. And that person, that's what they define God to be.
Right.
I just don't think
that's very interesting.
I know, right? But here's where it annoys me. It annoys me when people use that to justify magical claims. Well, I believe in a God, but my God is so, amorphous, or it's just the universe. And then they don't challenge magic claims. I think that's where it really, really bugs me. And that's why I don't think that using that term, a God, or calling the universe God, is useful. I think it muddies the water, because you're now saying that you believe in a God. And I think that reinforces or makes other people feel more comfortable in their magical ideas of what a God is.
Well, the word God has a hidden implication. And it's context dependent and it's culturally dependent. But if you call the universe God, you're not just saying that the universe does all of the things that are normally attributed to a God. You are also suggesting that the universe deserves something, that the universe deserves some form of worship or some form of, moral consideration. Like the word God is a heavy word, and it has a lot of that unspoken context. Why are you calling the thing God? Because you think that it is worthy of your adoration, your loyalty, your worship, your consideration, whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's where it gets sticky. We can say, yes, here are the list of attributes that a God might have. This thing over here meets those attributes. But it doesn't become a God until you decide that it is worthy of that title. And that's a moral judgment, right? Or an aesthetic one. That is the part where it gets sticky. Because one person might say, a God is anything that makes me feel happy. Cool. Another person might say, nothing can ever be a God. Not because nothing might have those properties, but because I refuse to ever give anything that label because I don't feel that towards anything.
Now, what sucks is I lost my train of thought. That's what sucks.
That's what sucks.
I was going to say something to the effect of the wider you get, the wider that net gets, the more difficult it is to have productive conversations.
Right.
And so the most useful thing there is ask. How do you define God? What makes something a God? Because at least when you start there, then you can have more solid footing to move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Because,
Go ahead.
well, when I think about something that's like dependent on nature, on the laws of nature, I don't actually think of it as a God, because I think of it as just some part of this bigger thing that's the nature. It's just the laws of nature, how it works, and if that's the case, I think it somewhat becomes devoid of meaning when you use the word God to describe something that's just part of something that we're part of, right? That's just something else that exists with us.
I disagree, but I do want to insist that those people exist and they do find meaning in those definitions. It's just important to meet those people where they are so that we can have conversations with them.
Yeah. Good question,
Right,
though,
no,
Lucas.
No, thank you. I agree with you, actually. You did convince me with that. Because I think it's important to have arguments and to have open discussions about these things, and it's good to meet people where they're at. So
Absolutely.
I think you're right.
Cheers. Well, thank you for
Awesome.
calling
Thanks
in.
for calling.
Thank you.
Okay. Wow. We have so many people. I'm kind of at a
Xeno's back.
I'm having one of those days. Who do we want to talk to next? Do you want to?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Xeno in South Korea is calling. Says they want to prove that a God exists through empirical evidence. Ooh, okay. Xeno, you're live with Eric and V.
Hey.
Hey, did you hear the last
What's
call?
going on? Yeah, I did.
Oh.
I think that was perfectly executed because
Oh.
there's so many ways you could describe a God.
Yeah.
It's just dependent on that definition, on their definition.
Right.
So,
Exactly. So you want to prove that a God exists.
We have to define that first.
Yeah, I agree. So first thing we're gonna do is ask you to define it. You want to prove that a God exists. So could you define that God before we talk about what evidence there is?
Yes, that's a perfect way to start. So, and I was going to start that way. So that God, in my definition, is the beginning of all existence.
Okay, so could a God...
That simply is just the beginning.
Okay, so question, could a God just be an event and not a being or a thing unto itself? Like, would you call God potentially just an event?
Yes.
Interesting.
Like the event that started everything. So yes, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Why do you find that definition useful? Because I feel like if I were to say that I believe in a God, but I wasn't like super clear in giving that definition, that would cause confusion.
To me, it's a really boring position to have, but I think that event is very powerful. I'm not trying to say, oh, God is the universe, and it's just like this space, this blank space. I really believe that point of time was really, really, really special, and there's something very unique about it. So that's just my feelings, but that's how I would define God, like as the first domino to begin all of this. The reason I feel that way because as a Solidity programmer and the blockchain and Web3, I know V knows a lot about NFTs and crypto. So, but
Yeah, my
that's
condolences,
basically what I
by the
do all
way.
day. So what was that?
I said my condolences, by the way. You guys are going through some rough shit right now.
Thank you. Yeah, and me and myself, I create all day, and I'm kind of living a really strange life that most of my friends can't relate to.
Dude, you're talking
And
to
I
YouTubers.
just create NFTs and different cryptos all day.
Yeah.
But it's just got me thinking about. Go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
No, I was just I'm vibing with you. You said
Okay,
it's
so
a weird
I'm
life.
I'm just thinking about everything from the perspective of creation. So
Okay. Well,
I'm thinking of, where does this idea exist before you create it? It's in your head. So we have different concepts, and then we bring them to reality. V had pointed out that I reached some really crazy long word in Wikipedia. I think it was Platonic
Idealism.
Platonic
yeah.
idealism. Oh my gosh, we asked you to look into that.
Yeah.
That one.
Oh.
So you guys told me to look at that, and it was so it was just too deep. In a great way, in a great sense. So I do reach these philosophies without knowing it. And I feel like I'm tapping into different things. So
that would be Platonic.
Just to get back on course.
Yeah.
What are you guys' thoughts about like what I'm saying? If I anything of substance.
No, it is of substance. And here is where I think, again, I might differ from a lot of people who engage with this topic as an atheist YouTuber, right? As somebody who makes this my platform. This is an interesting conversation. And it is one that has followed us throughout our philosophical history. Like, we're talking Platonic idealism, like, since then and before then, this conversation has happened in some form, and we do keep coming back to it, right? Well, why is everything the way it is? What started it? What is that moment of creation? Where do things exist before they are created? And how does it come into being? And these are questions that philosophically we do not have answers to, because everybody has their take on it. And a lot of the questions are not things that can be, tested in a laboratory or run experiments on. So talking about it is useful. The only concern that I have, and then we can jump back in, is when these conversations spill into the practical, the day-to-day, the events that are influenced by it in a way that is negative. And as long as we're not doing that, as long as that barrier is staying up, I'm happy to have this conversation and really deeply enjoy it and get into it and, theorize with you for as long as it makes a good TV show, I guess. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so my thoughts on that is, we're trying to have a really, really complicated conversation right now, because we're trying to go where science can't take us. And we're trying to also, I feel like I'm trying to prove NFTs to you 1,000 years ago. That's kind of like a good analogy, because we're so far, I feel like we're so far away from being able to prove this. The only thing I can do is just kind of draw things on a piece of paper, or just create thought experiments. So I feel like what we're dealing with is a concept, and the concept could be created, but it's still a concept. And so I think we have to discuss kind of what is this creation in your mind. Like, if I say, think of a green chair. Okay, the green chair is in your head. But where is it at in your mind, right? And so when you decide to create it, you have now created that. Like, you put that in the universe. So I believe that God...
Not necessarily.
Okay, go ahead.
I got to push back just a little bit. Not necessarily, because there's a difference between a concept and an existing object. We can use concepts to describe and better understand things, but if there's not an analog, piece of that, if there's not a thing there, then concepts don't exist in the same way. And so when you're talking about existence, I think we can have that category error, and it gets into some really, really weird territory. And so I see a red flag that's popping up here that I want to make sure that we address, and that is that it sounds like you're treating concepts and existing things the same. Why is that?
Well, I know that
because he's on the blockchain.
Create a concept in your mind that doesn't work in reality. I understand that, if that helps.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah. So I believe that you first have to have a good grasp on reality to understand if that concept could actually be produced, right? Like, I could come up with a concept for NFT that just blows people away, but can we produce it? You know, and if the answer is yes, like you're going to have to gather a bunch of professionals that know what they're doing, which is very important. You need people that know what they're doing. In this universe that I've lived in for 32 years old, I feel like I've studied it hard and long enough and nerded out to really understand kind of what's going on here. And I do really feel there is a creator. I'm not going to say that creator is a god. I just kind of call it a giant alien. Sorry, it's so late here. I just got done drinking.
Or an event.
But it's like a giant alien. But to get back on track, I guess what I want to say is, as a programmer, this idea does not exist until I bring it into existence. It's a concept. Not all concepts are realities, like we said. So the thing is, I just feel that this life was a concept. Everything you see around you was once a concept.
How do you?
I feel like we can prove that.
How so?
All right, because well, first let me ask you a simple question.
Sure.
Do you understand that a professional or expert is needed to come in and develop? Let's say we needed to create. I mean, I would like to use NFTs as an example.
No,
I don't know. If you know
sure. How about we talk about a tree?
Okay.
A tree is, a seed is planted and it becomes a tree. Did we need experts to come and add branches and make it larger over time? Was an expert required for that? What about if I drop a book and it falls on the floor? Is an expert needed to guide the book from my hand to the floor?
No, I think an expert is needed to describe to you why it falls, like why it has properties.
But if I don't have someone describing it to me, does it not fall? Does it just float there? Because that's when you get.
I think the person describing it to you is kind of like an NPC, but we're talking about why it has the property in the first place.
Okay,
not
you're mixing
third person observing the property.
You're mixing it again. I don't care about why. You're saying that there needed to be a plan for everything before those things happened. That the universe around us had to have been planned. And I'm pointing out examples of things happening that didn't have a plan, didn't require experts, and because of that.
How do you know it didn't have a plan?
When I drop a book and it falls, when I drop a book and it falls on the floor.
Yeah, you're saying that wasn't designed.
Well, it
looks like it wasn't designed, but was it? Like it's an illusion. So you're looking at something.
No, Xeno.
Like Minecraft, right?
No. The time to believe that is when there's a shred of evidence for it. Until then, that's just navel gazing.
Wait. I don't agree. I do hear that quite a lot, and I disagree heavily with
why?
That. Let me tell you why for a second.
Okay.
Because my uncle, I'm going to go back to NFTs again. He has no reason to believe that he could make so much money with NFTs and crypto, and I've made millions off of this, and he still works his 9-to-5 job. He feels he has no evidence to believe this. Well, it's not really common opinion. It's not really common knowledge yet. And so he's going to continue to be ignorant. I'm not calling you ignorant, but he's going to continue to live his life the way he does. So when you say the time to believe is when you have evidence, that's kind of like a play style. That's like a way to live life. And sure, if that suits you, that's great. But that's not the way I live my life, because I didn't have evidence of this great idea for me to produce it. I had to look for it. Like if you're a musician, do you have evidence of this great piece before it's made? Right. So you have to be in this weird state where you're able to kind of materialize an idea without evidence. And I think that's just called being an artist.
So
that's a creator.
Xeno, that's very poetic, but I really think that we've gone far afield. And I don't know how we can have a useful conversation going that far. I'm going to try and bring it back, though, and try and repeat a couple things to you to see if we can get back on the same page, yeah? Okay, sure. So you're comparing somebody who doesn't believe that a God created everything out of some grand plan. You're comparing that to your uncle who doesn't believe in NFTs, right?
Yes.
Okay,
So
so
he's completely like oblivious of all this crazy stuff going on
okay, so can you
in his normal life.
Can you
Because he's not an expert.
Can
He
you-
doesn't study anything.
can you show him the blockchain?
If he's willing to look
Okay,
at it.
if we're saying that anyone along the way is unwilling, then we're not going to be able to have a useful conversation here. So let's just assume that he's willing. Could you show him the blockchain?
Okay. Yes.
Could you show him the people who developed the concepts around it and the software developers?
Not before they created it.
I didn't say that, did I? Can you introduce them
Okay.
to those developers? They didn't blink out of existence when they invented NFTs. Could you introduce your uncle to them?
I know,
potentially?
I know where you're going with this.
You-
You're going to ask me to demonstrate and show you, of course, like
Well-
where's the God. And the evidence is in front of you. The blockchain
Actually,
is
Xeno, hold
alive.
on. I'm glad you're jumping ahead, but I want to make sure that we get there together. Okay.
Okay, let's get there.
Got it.
Let's get-
The example there is to point out that what you said, comparing your uncle not believing in NFTs, is a really bad comparison. Because the comparison,
No way. I don't think he's
because the
sorry.
comparison you made, there is evidence. You can point people to it. They can understand it. They can understand it independent of you.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. So if I point to the blockchain, which I have pointed various friends to, they don't know what the hell they're looking at.
Okay.
So you're suggesting, wait.
Okay.
Can I finish?
Yeah. Go ahead.
You're suggesting that what you're looking at is just able to be comprehended just by looking at it.
Got it.
So if you see like all these numbers and letters,
Mm-hmm.
well, you see what's going on, but do you really understand it?
Okay, great. Okay,
That's the question.
Yeah, let's look at that argument. You could be ignorant. Therefore, what I'm saying could be true. That is the structure, that is the informal fallacy that is built around what you are saying. You could be ignorant. And because I'm not going to prove that you're ignorant or anything like that, but just the possibility of you being ignorant makes my proposition possible or likely true. That is the structure of what you're saying.
Is it NFT of the gaps?
It could be. I just want to point out that the line of argumentation that you're providing is really bad. You can have other ways of
I don't
describing
believe
it.
so. I think I've got a perfect analogy structured out.
Okay. Well,
and I feel that
does your analogy?
I think you're missing it.
Does your analogy structure? Am I describing it correctly? Are you relying on you could be ignorant, therefore, what I'm saying is likely or possible?
Well, I think that's kind of like playing semantics. Yes, we understand there are people who don't understand things, and then there are people who do.
Okay.
So we could just divide them right now and move on to make progress with this conversation.
Well,
and understand some people will be ignorant and not understand.
Okay, but you were using that as argumentation to make it more possible or likely that your conclusion is true. And I want to make sure that I want to erase that from your toolbox because it's a bad one. So the argument, you could be ignorant or people could not know or understand what they see in front of them, does not make an unsupported conclusion more likely or true or possible. So let's erase that entirely. And let's assume that someone has the capability of learning a thing if they apply themselves. Let's just be that generous to people.
Okay, all right. So
right.
let's just create a world where, are you saying let's create a world where everyone will understand what's in front of them?
Xeno,
where you're going?
I want to create a situation where I am being generous to the callers. And so if somebody says, I don't understand evolution, and I say, you should take some classes, I'm not going to assume that they're too stupid to understand and they're not going to get it even if they take classes. It's condescending and it's rude.
I see what you're saying. Yes, I see what you mean.
And so in these conversations,
wait.
I'm making the assumption.
We're having a very serious conversation.
Yeah,
and we're talking about a God here, right?
As
a teacher, me myself, I feel. I'm sorry if I'm echoing. So as a teacher myself, I think it's important to point out that the importance of learning, not to be condescending, but as a Solidity developer, and I don't like to harp on what I do, but I oftentimes have a lot of people ask me a lot of questions, and one of my tips is you have to sit down and you have to learn. There's a lot of things you have to learn. Now, God is a lot more complicated than the Solidity programs and the Web3 programs that I write.
Xeno,
what I'm saying is,
wait.
This is a complicated situation.
Xeno, hold on.
That's where I
have to.
Guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like we're going in circles.
Really? I feel like I'm nailing, but yeah, go ahead.
I want to know why.
Okay, go.
Based on your definition of God at the beginning of this call, the beginning of all existence could be an entity, could be a concept, could be an event. That is God. Why is that more complicated than Web3? To me, that seems pretty simple. Like,
really?
if the concept of everything started, it's cool to think about, but like, why is that a more complicated conversation than teaching someone how to code?
Because as a programmer, you start to realize that the life that we live in, there's subcategories within one category. So there are many, many different branches, not just because I'm just saying, hey, there's many branches. It's just something you learn. So everything is divisible up to a certain point. And when you're talking about life, something as large as the universe, it gets even more complicated because there are places where, and let's just say, the physics of the universe start to change in different places. And we haven't even been able to explore these areas and explain exactly why it does what it does. And so I understand you might disagree at this point, but just follow me here if you can. We're talking about life, like universe. If everything within one bubble was that universe, that's what we're describing. So the reason it's complicated is because we are so tiny and the universe is so large, so you're going to have to start explaining a lot of different properties and functionality.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Why do you feel that you don't?
Because I've met a pregnant 17-year-old who has no fucking clue what's going on in her body. And yet she's still gestating, isn't she?
Know.
But does that prevent that gestation? Does that prevent the pregnancy from happening until they know exactly what's going on in their body?
Wait, where you? No, I don't understand how that follows. So we're talking about the programmer, and we're not talking about the player. So you're talking about the player.
No, so
I'm talking about the programmer and why everything works the way it works,
yeah,
and how it works. You're talking about, well, I'm going to go and play the game,
Xeno,
and the functionalities just work when I play.
Xeno.
That's what you're talking about.
So your response to V was, things are more complex because you need to be able to explain more things. Is that right?
Yeah, you have to leave it to experts in the field, right? Like, so let's just think about something you need an expert for.
Xeno, hold on.
Please finish.
I had a train of thought that I wanted to bring you down here, and now I've lost it. V, do you want to pick up? Because I'm kind of frustrated from that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I think this is probably not going to come as a surprise, but we only have about 20 minutes left.
Holy crap!
Xeno, I feel like we kind of lost the thread.
Is it a stalemate?
It's not a stalemate.
Well, that's unfortunate.
It's not a stalemate, but I would encourage you to, I don't know. You're welcome to call back. You're welcome to call back, but here's the thing.
I'll call back next Sunday.
Yeah, you should. But
can I leave you guys with one thing?
Well,
in a minute.
Let me talk.
So in a minute, we don't want to get into it sounds like you are getting a lot of philosophical value from your job. It sounds like your job is allowing you to conceptualize of the world in a certain way. And that's really cool. My job does that for me too. But the problem, the main piece of disconnect that's happening here is you are describing your concept of the world based on what you do and how it's informed your understanding of things. and treating it as though we should also have that concept and we should also understand things in that way. And we're saying why. And that is the space where we need to play. We understand that you get a lot of value out of what you do, out of how you view the world and that intersection. That's really cool. We don't have that. So we need to be convinced that your way of viewing things is correct. And that middle space is where we want to play next time.
And just to make sure that we're super clear, Xeno, when you say things like, if you could understand it, if it's possible for you to get it, or things like that, it comes off as really condescending, and it tends to cause people to shut down. And so I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah,
I just want to be super clear on that. And I want to give you the chance to say something.
I'm aware of that, but...
And then I have one last thing that I want to...
guys.
Yeah, and then I have one last thing that I want to say too.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Do you want to make your statement, or should I make mine first, and then we'll move on to the next call?
You can make yours, and I can make a little small closing statement. You
Sure.
guys can go ahead and move on.
No problem.
That's cool.
You don't need a process to use the process, and it's not about whether or not people are acting in that. The silkworm doesn't know how they're making silk, and yet they do. The point of why that was brought up is a universe-creating thing, if it existed, doesn't need to know how it's working. They just do it. Needing the complexity or the intelligence to understand how they did it, we can see in the day-to-day that that's not necessarily the case, that processes happen, things happen, and we don't need someone to explain it to us for it to happen. It's nice to know how it works, but it's not necessary like that. And I think that you're taking the computer programmer and you're applying that in a universe that doesn't require that the way it does in programs. And I feel like that might be where the disconnect is. Xeno, last words, and then we'll move on to the next call.
Okay. I feel that the real problem here is, as a Unreal Engine lecturer, so I teach people how to code, and I teach people various other things on how to develop Web3 and NFT space. I think it's very important to get into teaching. And there's a moment in time where the students can ask questions, but if they were constantly badgering and interrupting, I don't think there would be an efficient way that I could teach them how to do these things. And so if you have a surgeon that's really good at what they do, and you're going to have to sit down and shut up at one point and start listening to, which artery are you going to have to create the incision in, and where are you going to insert these different organs here and there, in order to know exactly what you're doing. So I think the show is helpful, but when you want to get down to actually learning how this universe works, you're going to have to learn from someone in the field without feeling that it's condescending, that they have to walk you through each and every piece, because that's just how complicated it is. If I tell you that, you need to learn addition and division before algebra.
Xeno, we need this to be brief.
This is my last point.
Yep.
You've been making
it.
All
right.
Okay.
Can I
wrap up?
Okay. So I'm sorry that you need to learn certain concepts before you move on to advanced concepts like addition and subtraction, but you have to learn these prerequisites first.
Good to know. Thanks, Xeno. Bye. Eric, you really should shut up and sit down when someone calls your show to talk to you about a thing.
I am amazed that the point that I made entirely went over his head. That what I was saying, because here's the thing, I don't disagree. Complex, surgery, you should know how to do the complex surgery before you do complex surgery. But when you're talking about, just things that happen, that's not the case. That's not how this works. And we gave examples, but it sounded like he waited for his turn to talk on that one.
Well, if you call into the show expecting to take on the role of patient, condescending teacher, it's not going to go very well. Because, again, as you said, this is not the format for that. This is not where we do that. If you would like to provide us with resources, if you would like to tell us what books to read, what philosophers to engage with, we would love that. What we do is we leave the show, we look into that shit.
We do.
And we learn on our own time. But telling us to sit down and shut up on our own show after miserably failing to do what you tried to do is cringy, and also Oh,
Yeah.
I wanted to make so many NFT comments and I didn't. And
I'm proud of you. You didn't go for the low-hanging fruit.
I mean, if you're going to represent the biggest Ponzi scheme currently in existence, at least do so in an effective way. Like, oof.
But yeah, the assumption that we haven't. The thing is, we've spent years and years and years on these topics. So to have the assumption that we haven't is not charitable, and all it does is make you look condescending. You can do better. It's okay. We have 7 callers
And 15 minutes.
Okay. Do we want to try and hammer 2 out?
Yeah, we can do that. Which
Okay.
ones do you want to take?
Let's see.
I'm thinking Benji's sounds interesting.
Let's start with Benji. Benji in the South says that they work for an international televangelist, and it's hard to bite their tongue at times.
Hey guys, yeah.
Holy crap! So you're
Right.
like Crystal Cathedral level shit?
Well, if I told you who, you would know right away.
Don't want to
Be
dox
familiar
you.
with them. They're pretty big.
Okay. How did you
Yeah.
come? How?
But
Why? Like, how did you come into this job?
well, I have a technical skill set, and I was just looking for a new job one day. That one paid well, and several years later, here I am.
Benji, I was really hoping you were going to say that you planted a seed.
Oh, that's funny. Benji,
Oh,
yeah, I would imagine that it's tricky to not express your feelings while dealing with all of that.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, it's a difficult.
Well, I just kind of wanted to ask. So if I were you, I'd have like a moral dilemma. Is that kind of where you're
Yes.
at? You are. Ooh.
That is because I guess I'm essentially was planning on asking for advice or input on how not to go crazy from my job. So what really triggered it recently was they actually have a TV show, a live TV show they do every morning, and I was watching it while working to make sure everything was going smoothly. And they were essentially saying, anybody who is not pro-life is going to hell, and
is fired, I'm sure.
being a
Just fired.
leftist guy with a lot of female friends, woman friends who are very scared and upset right now, it really struck me. I was like, man, I'm helping these guys put out this really toxic ideology, and really I kind of feel in some way responsible for being, they would do it either way, but
Yeah.
it's
So
obviously the answer is to not work there, but
yeah, Benji, I'd polish off my resume. I understand it could be a really good job, but speaking as somebody in video production who's been looking for more work, I've had my eyes in that market for a while now, and there are opportunities. Because I could not imagine the turmoil of that feeling that you must be going through.
Yeah, it's rough. The only other option, I think, is just become a mole and gather as much dirt as humanly possible and just report the shit out of them.
I do plan on publishing a tell-all once I'm done with my employment there.
Oh my god.
Well, when that
I
happens,
even have the name, sex, drugs, and televangelism. It's going to be great.
It would sell. It would sell.
you should, give us a call when you finish it.
But yeah, honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're gonna, unfortunately, we cannot tell you that it's all fine and you should keep doing what you're doing. I've been in a similar position where I've had to really think about, do I want to work where I'm working in the past, because there are things that you just can't put your stamp on, and there's just too much turmoil inside to. It's not a fair trade-off. There is no amount of money that you could make, I would imagine. I have not made buckets and buckets of money. But I would imagine that the amount of money that you would have to make feeling guilty all the time and questioning if you're doing the right thing worth it.
Ooh. Can I add a caveat though?
Yeah.
This is all predicated on a privilege that we shouldn't take for granted. Benji, if that's your only income, if you're stuck, then making sure that you're okay is okay. Like taking care of yourself and making sure that you have a roof over your head or food in your mouth, you know, those kinds of things, taking care of your basic needs are incredibly important. And I said polish off your resume. I didn't say quit tomorrow.
Yeah.
So even though we're talking about the moral and ethical implications and all of that stuff, if you are looking for something else, you can feel a little bit better. You know, if you're just making sure that you're able to survive, that is understandable and okay. Like I do want to make sure that I clarify, because I'd hate for people to think, oh, well, I should put myself out on the street.
That is a good call.
Yeah.
Someone in the comments says you can make NFTs.
Oh, God.
Like a tool. Thanks for clarifying, because I mean, I do advocate, on the side for women's rights, LGBT rights, minority rights. And a friend of mine told me, just keep doing that, and maybe your morality can be, I guess, balanced out. But
well, I mean, here's the thing. It's not like there's a society that's pressuring you. It's not like we can objectively look at the numbers and go, Benji made the right or wrong decision.
Right.
And because of that, the person that you need to contend with is yourself. What you feel comfortable with is on you. And if you're like, you know what, I can balance that out, we can disagree with you, but that doesn't really freaking matter, because you're the one who needs to go to bed with you at night. You know what I mean? So take that with a grain of salt. Our evaluations are not your evaluations, and your evaluations are going to be what matters the most in the decisions that you make.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate that. On a micro level, I did want to get your input on little things that happen at work sometimes. Like recently, I was
Let's see if we can.
About flat earthers to a coworker.
Oh God. Okay, let's see if we can rapid fire one or two, and then we got to get to the next caller.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
But we were talking about flat earthers, and then he started getting into young Earth creationism, and I found out that he is a young Earth creationist, and he started talking about Kent Hovind and how he helped him with his thing in Alabama, and he starts talking about the quote unquote science behind it, and at that point, I'm just yeah.
Okay. If you want,
have any
yes,
idea
yes,
on how I could, should I just
Ron Wyatt. Bring up Ron Wyatt and see what happens. Oh yeah. I think that would be a really, really funny. So Ron Wyatt is such a freaking nutcase that even the young Earth creationists, help me, what's the name of the group that made the Ark Park?
AIG?
Yeah, AIG. AIG actually denounced Ron Wyatt. I know, right? Yeah, the guy said he discovered everything: blood of Jesus and cherry wheels at the bottom of the Red Sea and
Tower of Babel.
Just
doing lots
you
of
name
discovering.
It. Yeah. Just if I were you, I'd pick there, because if the person is, oh, absolutely, this is true, then you can point out that AIG is against it, and look into it. And if he says, oh, that's bullshit, like just a little cognitive dissonance could be fun.
Also, though, go work somewhere where you can have really good conversations with coworkers who are morally aligned or scientifically aligned.
Those places exist.
The other thing here is not just, do you feel comfortable with yourself? It's also, hey, it's possible that those kinds of awkward, just awful conversations at work don't need to be happening either. And it's really nice to work at a place where you actually like your coworkers. Yeah. But we do need to move on. Benji, tell us when this book comes out, because We're going to buy it.
And good luck to you.
Yes.
Okay, will do.
Thank you for calling.
Thanks a lot, guys. Big fan.
Bye.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Fancy Monkey in Georgia has a story about an answered prayer from when they were a believer and wants to hear our thoughts on it. Fancy Monkey, hi. Hello?
Hi.
Hi. Okay. So I know that we don't have too much time left, but I want to make sure that you have the chance to say it. So tell us about your answered prayer.
Yeah. I want to make it quick. All right. So years ago, I put myself out there to adopt a kid, a special needs kid. So they presented me with a 9-year-old kid. He fit the bill, was perfect. Everything seemed good. I was still a believer at the time. Mm-hmm. So I went into a little room by myself, you know, to pray to Sky Daddy. And I just said, you know, I wasn't looking for signs or portends, you know, I didn't believe that. I was just looking for that quiet voice, you know, that you hear about. Mm-hmm. And I said, all right, you know, am I supposed to be this kid's father? Should I do this? And then I went about my business, and within the hour, the phone rang. It was the social worker, and she said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, he's got a birthday coming up in a couple of weeks." And I said, "Really? What day?" And she said, "January 7th, my birthday."
Wow.
And I put my hand over the mouthpiece on the phone, and I said, I looked up and went, "Wow, not even subtle, dude." So the thing is, now I'm an atheist. Of course, I don't believe in answered prayers and stuff, but holy crap, that's a compelling argument, right?
Really?
I mean, as a believer,
it's beautiful.
Well, don't you think so? I mean,
well,
I mean,
I think V is right.
It's a hell of a coincidence, right?
Well, see, this is the thing. The small voice that we're all taught about, right? And that like emotional moment. Like I got goosebumps when you said that. Like I got chills. That was really cool. And if I was a Christian, that would not be disconnected from how compelling I found the argument, right? That's tied right in there. So let's acknowledge that it was really, really poignant and awesome and cool, and put that on the shelf for now, because none of that matters when we're talking about how logically, valid this might be. What is the likelihood? What would the explanation be from like a very rational standpoint? Did God change the birth date of the kid, or did God know what was going to happen and that you were going to pray and like arranged for the kid's parents to have sex, so that it would time out correctly, like rationally on like a really like basic level, like it's really cool, and that it happened within the hour is compelling, but I don't know, like realistically, it doesn't stand up to any scrutiny.
And the other piece is when we're looking for something special, no matter what it is, we point at it and go, that's the special thing. I mean, when you're tuned in for that kind of thing, when you're looking for something, you're going to find it. And the thing is, if there was some great coincidence that happened the next day, that felt just as valid. And it's just kind of the way that we work. We hold on to the hits and we ignore the misses. And I can tell you there are so many times that I've prayed and I thought that my prayer was answered, but I look back and I realize that is just a drop in the bucket compared to all of the times I prayed and nothing happened. I just held on to the hits. And so your ability to...
I'm just saying the timing of it, and the fact that it seems like a remarkable coincidence that we would have the same birthday. Now, I looked it up. I went and looked it up, and it's not that much of a coincidence. Nick Cage has the same birthday.
Maybe Nick Cage was supposed to be
that were born on January 7th.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
so I realize, like I said, now I realize. But I'm thinking, I wanted to put it out there because people that do still hold to answered prayer, that's that one seems like the real deal, just because of the timing of it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The what seems to be a wild coincidence, which isn't really,
Well, I mean, but here's a piece that I would counter with, and that is, if I had that mindset still, and someone told me that it was a coincidence or possibly just a coincidence, I would feel like that person was demeaning the specialness of the event. Like that person was trying to make something that was really, really wonderful for me not acceptable and not okay. I think, V, you have the right way to approach that.
Yeah.
Recognize the specialness of it, because the specialness of a connection that you have with your child, that is wonderful regardless of whether or not a God is there. In fact, I think that
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the fact that somebody would say it's less special because a God did or didn't ordain it, it is wonderful. The connection and the love and the relationship that you build is wonderful. And I just get frustrated because I would hate for someone to think that it's less special because a God did or didn't do it. Like, just recognize the uniqueness of it. You don't need to you don't need to poo-poo it, but you also don't need a God to make it wonderful.
Yeah. Right. I thought it would be fun, and I thought, to illustrate to people that, why we jump to it's an answered prayer when it's just a wild coincidence.
Yeah.
That's
it's
really
just a series of events. Like you said, it's counting a hit, and it seems like a real hit, but it was just coincidence. Just happened.
Oh yeah, I
cool.
It definitely. Thank you
Thank you for
calling and
sharing that story too. That was awesome.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah. Well, I love you guys, and I hope to see you again.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I've had so many stories like that. One of them that I used to tell all the time was that when I was 18, I needed to move out of the house and get a place, and I won a raffle right when I needed to come up with money for a down payment, and I was able to sell it for exactly that down payment. And I was like, that's a miracle.
I did not know that story. You have never told me that story.
I will share that story with you after the show. Yeah. But again, it's an awesome story. You don't need magic to make it valid.
John Klein, 13th of July is a very good friend's birthday as well, so I agree.
Okay. Wow. Thank you to all of those callers. Before we move on to the next thing, though, hey, everybody, the show's brought to you by you. It's your support that keeps us going. If you want to support us, if you want to join us for the Patreon hangout this week, or you just want to get an ad-free version of the podcast or this show, consider going to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. That's patreon.com/skepticgeneration. We sincerely appreciate it. You could also buy us a coffee or get something for the studio on the Skeptic Generation wish list. I actually just recently updated it. We need things that are boring, like chords. Stuff that we're going to get on our own, but if you wanted to hurry us up along the path, that's awesome too. All right, you ready to read some super chats?
Yes, let's read super chats.
Okay, cool.
All right. Ooh, Viperzang sent $5 and says, quotes the comment that this video is based on. SG videos are becoming more cringy, absurd, touchy-feely garbage with each passing week. I am done.
Honestly, if you want us to just yell at people or not try and have useful, productive conversations, I'm sure that there's other programming where you can find that.
Also, though, we did have 4 calls about love last week, so I get the touchy-feely bit.
Fair.
But why is that garbage? I think that's cool.
Goodwill Thinking sent 4 pounds and a giant cup of coffee emoji.
Thank you. Vincent Ranger sent $5 and says, you both are awesome. I've enjoyed listening for years. Thank you, Vincent.
Yeah, John Klein sent $10 and says, OMG, I have to know what you two think about Star Trek New Worlds. So far, I'm digging it.
Same. It is... I am definitely somebody who's willing to go into different genres and different ways of doing Star Trek. I think Discovery is good. I think Picard is good. But it's really cool to see Strange New Worlds going like right back to classic cheese. It's awesome.
Unpopular opinion, after having seen other ways that the universe could go, seeing it go back to the classic cheese is kind of a bummer for me, because I feel like they've already demonstrated that there's so much more that they could do. That said, on its own as a show, it's great, but now you get that they've already raised my expectations, and so I guess I have a new appetite for it. And yeah, people are going to hate me for that.
I'm just waiting on the political thriller TV show, like West Wing version, like not in space, just like talking about Starfleet and Federation business.
Oh, I guarantee you there's probably 12 web series of that.
I want it. Lucas Black sent $5 and says, the Fae imprisoned the gods in vessels. The only one who's seen one since was tricked by the god and forced to spend eternity as a cartoon. I feel like that's a reference to something that
Definitely.
I don't get.
I don't either. Viper Zang sent $5 more and says, as a wise animated asteroidia once said, dumb people are always blissfully unaware of how dumb they really are. I'm sure that that caller would agree with you.
Amit sent $10 and says, what's in V's cup? NFT, not fucking tea. It's true.
Viper Zang sent $2 more and says, bad advice, Robin Hood for atheist non-profits. Robin Hood for atheist non.
In relation to Benji's call, funnel the money into atheist stuff, which could work.
Yeah.
But like, don't steal. If like, don't let that happen. That would be sad to get caught.
If you do want to support atheist nonprofits, I think Recovering from Religion is a wonderful, wonderful organization to support. I know that there are others like American Atheists and Freedom from Religion, but I have a special spot in my heart for RFR. Yeah.
And then HTP Key sent £6 and 63 pence and says, another great episode, you lovelies. I'm giving you everything in my Google Wallet.
Aw, thank you so much. This was fun, and I have a story to tell you after the show. For those of you who are patrons at the level, we look forward to talking to you this week in the Discord. I just remember on Saturday I am going to be doing the computer build, so come join me. I will have a guest, and
Just be chill in the background. Maybe put some lo-fi on.
Yeah, play with the cat.
Vibe.
Maybe
The cat will come visit. Accidentally build the cat into the computer.
Please
now
no.
we have like a cat computer.
Oh God.
That like gets zoomies.
That's both adorable and needs to be animated.
All right, you guys.
Until next time.
We're glad we had
this talk.